What's up, everybody? Welcome back. So, today I'm really excited to talk about homeschooling because I've gotten a lot of questions about me homeschooling and just kind of the experience I went through. And so, there's a lot of things I want to share. I'm not going to get into specifics about programs, curriculums, all that. What I want to talk about is an overview experience and some of the really important things I learned. Okay, so for example, I want to talk about the autonomy of being able to be myself, some of the failures I went through and what I learned from it. I want to talk about social life. Okay, so how important social life was and how I kind of achieved that. Third is just building work ethic and character while being homeschooled. I think that's really important. And lastly, I want to talk about the best advantage of being homeschooled. Okay, so this is something that a lot of people don't talk about and something I got to learn and experience during my time homeschooling. Okay, so just a quick background into my experience homeschooling. I actually started homeschooling starting from the ninth grade. Okay, so most people start when they're really early. For some reason, I decided that I didn't want to go through the typical, public schooling after ninth grade. So from first grade, ninth grade, I actually went through public schooling. And then from ninth grade on, I actually told my parents that I wanted to be homeschooled. And that's the first thing that I think is really important to share whenever your child is considering homeschooling or if you're considering homeschooling your child is autonomy for a kid is really important. And one of the things that I've realized that my parents did really well is they always gave me the autonomy to fail, to be the person I want to be, to make mistakes, right? And a lot of times parents have this mindset where they want to be overprotective, they want the best for the kid, but because of that, they naturally tend to provide too many limitations as to what the kid can do, right? So in my example, I wanted to be homeschooled starting from ninth grade. My parents, being that they're from an Asian background where they believe that schooling is really important. In our culture, if you don't go through school, it's a big failure. And so in my parents' mind, they probably thought this was the stupidest idea. But they gave me the autonomy to make choices while supporting me, even though they may not have thought it was the best idea. So it turns out it was one of the best things I did. And I'll share my story a little later, but that's something really important to know is that autonomy for a child is really important. As much as you care for them, as much as you love them, being overprotective actually causes a lot of issues down the road. And I have tons of friends, tons of people I know where their parents were just overprotective. They had too many limitations as to what they can do, what they can't do, and because of that, their kids actually resented them growing up. Okay, so my story is, basically I was homeschooled starting from ninth grade, but I started to work, right? And I started a job actually early on while in high school. And, a couple of years later, after I graduated from college, I still went through college. I went through public college, yes, University of Texas, Dallas. Graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. I graduated with honors, so I did fine. I didn't do crazy well. But after that, I worked for a startup, and a couple years later, I started my own company, right? And then ever since 2014, I've been running my own business, doing digital marketing, content marketing, and investments. Okay, so not that I did super well. I'm not the CEO of this large company, but the measure of success that I define is the ability to spend your time where you want to spend your time. And that's something that I've had the luxury of doing. And so basically what I'm saying is I think I did okay, right? I'm not there yet. I'm not a huge success, but I turned out all right. But one of the things that was really important looking back on, especially when I decided to homeschool, was having the autonomy to fail, right? During my time homeschooling, I actually started 3 different companies. It failed miserably, but because of those failures, those were some of the greatest learning experiences for me, right? I didn't want to fail again, so I took that as an experience that I would not go through again, and because of that, it only got better and better. So that's one of the first things I wanted to share is that autonomy and allowing your child to fail but make decisions on their own is really important, especially if your child is homeschooled. Okay, the second really important topic I want to talk about is social life. Okay, so one of the things that I knew early on before homeschooling was the social life aspect will be really challenging because naturally in public school, you have friends all around you, right? And I remember the day that I left school, it was really a sad moment. All my friends were like, "What are you doing? Like, why are you quitting school? Are you serious?" Right? And I had a lot of good friends back then in ninth grade. But when I decided to homeschool, I knew that I had to do something different, right? I can't just stay at home all day, play games, do my own thing. That just wouldn't be healthy. And luckily, as a kid, I understood that social life was really, really important. There's a number of options you can do whenever your child is homeschooled. The first one is there's tons of community groups out there where specifically it's for homeschooled parents and families, right? So there's different clubs, there's different communities. One of the communities I joined was a basketball community, right? So it was a homeschool basketball club where different kids who were homeschooled all around my area came together, played basketball. We even went on to play tournaments. We went to national championships, and it was one of the best experiences I had. So I'm not super good at basketball, but nonetheless, I was challenged because all the guys around me were really, really good, and they accepted me for who I was. I got to play with them. I got to bond with them, and it was a really, really important aspect of my social life. On top of that, I still had friends in public school, which was really, really important. And most of my friends came through church, right? So again, it just goes back to this aspect of where do you find your community and where do you find your friends? But nonetheless, having a social life, especially when your child is being homeschooled, is super, super important. Okay, so the third thing I want to talk about is work ethic and character. Okay, that's one of the things that you can't really manufacture, right? You can't really just teach a child, okay, you gotta work hard and you gotta have good character. So I think one of the most important things I did while I was being homeschooled was I worked, right? I went out there, I found a job, and I worked, right? And one of the first jobs I had was just working at a restaurant, right? I worked at a Chinese restaurant doing takeout, picking up the phone, just sending out orders. And it was not a pleasant job, right? I remember my first day in the job, I had to carry this really, really hot boiling tea. I almost dropped it and my boss got mad at me. But that's one of the best experiences I know for any child that's being homeschooled is as early as possible, 15, 16 years old, get out there and start working, right? Sometimes, if you give your child allowance, make sure that they work for it. I would personally recommend not giving your child allowance, especially after they turn 15, 16, because that's when they can go out there, get a job, realize what it's like working out in the real world. And especially when your child is being homeschooled, they have a lot more time to be able to find a job and get that real world experience, right? And the other thing that I want to talk about is a lot of times your child may have different interests, different passions, or different things they want to explore. And this may go back to number one, where you give your child autonomy to make decisions on their own. But one of the things that I did when I was being homeschooled was I had a chance to start different companies, and that's something that I was just really, really passionate about. Doing different startups, trying different ideas. I had the stupidest ideas, right? I had my first idea was a landscape business, right? I thought I was going to transform everyone's backyard to this amazing golf course, and it failed miserably, right? And then my second idea was just selling massage chairs, and fortunately, it did quite well, but it wasn't something that was sustainable long term, right? And then I tried different ideas. That just failed miserably, but it was all part of a learning experience, right? So if your child has this crazy idea that they want to start while they're being homeschooled, let them do it. Support them. Do your best to love them in a way that they know that you have their back, right? And I think that's one of the most important things for me as a homeschooled child, to be able to know that my parents had my back. Okay, but before I get to the last thing, I want to talk about character. Character, again, is something that you can't manufacture, and something that only comes through working hard and spending time with people. If your child is left alone all day at home, that's not an environment where they can foster good character, right? Good character is often built through working hard and spending time with people. Because when you spend time with people, there's inevitably going to be conflict, right? You're going to have to deal with different things that may happen in the relationship. And that's all part of building your character. But more so when you're working, right? When you're working, when you have to work with a boss, with coworkers, when you're challenged with different aspects of life that makes it a lot more difficult, that's when your work ethic and your character is really, really going to build. I look back at my life and I see all the hardest challenges, the most difficult times in my life, and I'm really, really grateful for them. You know, if my life was easy and just like I had no worries, no troubles, I think my character now would be a lot different. And so I'm really grateful for the challenges, the hard experiences, the hard things in life, right? Let your kid go through those things. Let your kid experience all those things, especially when they're homeschooled. Okay, so now I want to talk about the best advantage of being homeschooled. The best advantage of being homeschooled is simply having the freedom to do what you want to do, right? And that's one of the luxuries in life that most people don't talk about, is that, you know, like oftentimes most people go through schooling, they go through, you know, finding a job, and then they go through having a normal job. And that's completely fine, right? But most people never have the chance to do what they truly want to do. And, you know, especially when they're older, when they have families, when they have kids, you know, sometimes in life you just can't do that. When you have responsibilities, you can't really explore the things you've always wanted to do. But when you're homeschooled, you have a lot more time, right? Like you're not bound by all these exams, all these classes, all these different tests. And so naturally you have a lot more time and also a lot more freedom to really explore what you want to do, what you're passionate about. And that's one of the things that I'm so grateful that I got to experience and explore while I was being homeschooled. You know, like I said, when I was being homeschooled, I started 3 different companies. It all failed miserably, but it was one of the best experiences I had because it taught me, you know, how to work hard by myself. You know, when I was young, I had this desire to not have to work for somebody else and have the freedom throughout most of my life to spend time with loved ones. And looking back 10 years later, I'm still doing what I really love every day. You know, I truly wake up and I'm excited about life. I'm really happy to do the work I'm doing. I'm really grateful for all the challenges, the struggles, and just the way that my life is continually being challenged so that I'm growing as a person. Okay, so again, this is just a really quick overview of my experience homeschooling and some of the really, really important things to know. If you like this kind of content, make sure to like and subscribe. If you want me to talk more about specific homeschooling ideas and curriculums and all that, let me know in the comments below. Or if you have any questions, leave it in the comments below as well. I'll be more than happy to answer it. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.